Hey everyone, before we learn more about Harvard University, we wanted to let you know that you can calculate your chances of admission at Harvard and other schools with your free CollegeVine account. Start by completing your chancing profile with information such as your GPA, classes, and extracurricular activities. From there, you can use CollegeVine's Hub tool to see your chances and information about the school, such as cost, majors, and more. Visit the link in the description below to sign up and see your chances today.
Personalities are Harvard students all type A, sociopaths, satire 5. Although sociopaths make up less than 1% of the US population, they accounted for 54% of this year's admitted students. And non-sociopaths are still underrepresented at Harvard was the title of that article. Are Harvard students all sociopaths? I would say that they're not. I think Harvard has a lot of nice students, but there are definitely very driven type A personalities around. Harvard versus MIT. MIT selects a more specific student type than Harvard. They're looking for the people who won the national math competition, who have perfect scores on everything, perfect GPA. Harvard is looking for really interesting people who maybe, it doesn't necessarily matter if they don't have the most perfect GPA or SAT score, as long as they have some really fabulous stuff about them. Could be that they started a business or, we'll talk about it later when we talk about how to get in. But Harvard's class overall is a little more diverse, even if that's all I have to say about that. I wanted to talk about a little personal story I have, which is has to do with the baseball team. The year before I got to Harvard, the Harvard varsity baseball team went totally viral for their cover of "Call Me Maybe." It was a dance cover they did on the way to a game in a tour bus. And I got there the year after. I was my first day, I was sitting and eating lunch alone because the other transfers had left maybe. And ultimately the whole baseball team sat down next to me, which was definitely intimidating. I saw people I recognized from the video. If you don't remember the video, it spawned tons of copies. Every sports team ended up doing their "Call Me Maybe" cover in a tour bus or whatever. It was a big thing in 2012. Anyway, they all sat down. I was pretty nervous. I was like, oh my goodness, the baseball team is surrounding me. They're talking about baseball. They turned towards me. They started asking me questions. It was a really awesome experience, especially given it was my first day there and I was a sophomore transfer. It seemed that the people on the baseball team were really interested in getting to know who I was, how I'd gotten to Harvard, what it was like being a transfer so far. Did I know where I was going? Did I need anything? It was a really sweet introduction to Harvard, and I just remember thinking wow, it's nice that people here are friendly. They respect each other. Not that that's not the case at other universities. I just thought it was really nice. And I wasn't proved wrong during my time at Harvard. I thought there are a lot of really nice, respectful people around. Talk about admission statistics. It does have a low acceptance rate, 4.6 last year. It's been getting lower every year. It is hard to get in. 1650 is the class. It might have been 1651. I think I've seen it both ways for this current year. It is a high yield, but there are still people accepted from the waiting list. So if you're waitlisted, it's not the end of the world. If you want to know how to get in off the wait list, you can ask, and I'll try to answer if we have any time at the end. The demographics, many do come from nearby. Got, a good portion of international students. In addition to these, I would say also more than 18% of students are first gen. And I think about 1/3 of the students, 33%-ish of students at Harvard are white. That's the stat I have written down. Anyway, intended field of studies, humanities, been getting lower and lower over the past few years. Social science kind of been steady, and STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, been increasing recently. This isn't the fields that people actually end up concentrating in. This is just the fields that people declared they would. Obviously, you can say on the Common App that you're going to study one thing and show up and study something different. Totally allowed. And I wanted to give you my photo of what I believe to be the ugliest building at Harvard. It may not look that ugly in this picture. It is the Harvard Science Center. I assure you, it is ugly. It's uglier than the GSD. It's uglier than the old Smith Campus Center. It's a really ugly building. And that's just how it is. And you're going to walk through that building every day, and you're going to have to look at it. And it just you never get used to it. It's really an eyesore. I am going to say it is 6:30 now, but I do want to get through just a little more info about how to get in. And also we started 10 or 15 minutes late because of those technological issues. So if it's okay for people, We're going to just keep going on just a little bit, make sure we get through the rest of this presentation and take a few more questions. How do you get into Harvard? How does Harvard choose who to accept? So all elite colleges want to find the students who are going to be successful in their field, who are going to improve the college's prestige and the college's long-term finances, maybe through encouraging more people to apply or to go, or through directly giving donations to the school. Basically, Harvard wants people who are going to be rich and important and leaders. How does Harvard pick a class of people who are going to be rich, important leaders? Well, Harvard does not want a bunch of people who are really well-rounded. It doesn't mean just because you're well-rounded that you won't get in. Realistically speaking, Harvard wants people who are specialized and have really amazing achievements in one or two areas. And then when you put all of those people together, the overall class is well-rounded, even if each individual student isn't necessarily well-rounded. Yeah, and colleges do have rough goals for the number of students who are interested in different majors. So people ask me all the time, like, I've heard that it's hard to get into school for CS. Should I apply for women and gender studies and then will I have a better chance of getting into Harvard? Okay, like let's unpack that for a moment. So like, yes, women and gender studies at Harvard, the people who select that major as their most interesting major, I'm not even sure that's the official name of the major, of the concentration at Harvard, but there's one that's like that. Yes, it is a little less selective. That concentration declaration is a little less selective than computer science. That said, like the people who would select women and gender studies as their as the concentration they want to pursue would have like a profile that's really geared towards that, right? Like you don't want to be the person who clearly has a CS driven profile and you say you want to study East Asian studies, even if you have never studied an East Asian language or culture in any like real way. It's just not going to look good. Like you'll still have a better chance of getting in CS if that's where your experience lies. So don't just make something up because you've heard that it makes it a little bit easier to get in. Like go with the thing that makes the most sense with your profile, the thing that you're going to write the best essays about. That is important. That would be my advice. This question I get every year. People always ask me. Harvard is really looking to like reject applicants. So like, because there's so many people who are qualified to get in. It becomes a crapshoot when you're talking about like sub 5% admissions rates. Just don't give Harvard any reasons not to accept you. Don't have typos in your essays. Don't say inappropriate or offensive things. Yeah, that's what I would say about that. The Harvard admissions officers are not robots. They actually do read your essays. They actually do look at your profile and then pitch it to the rest of the admissions committee if they think that you should have a spot in Harvard's class. Yeah, I mean, you have to write when you're writing your essays and creating your profile. You have to try to you have to humanize yourself. You have to make yourself vulnerable. You have to have something that the admissions officer is going to remember, that is going to resonate with the admissions officer. You have to connect with that person. You want them to remember your application and to fight for you. A lot of people are asking about test optional policies. Yes, Harvard is test optional right now. It's due to the pandemic. It may only be temporary. They may come back with tests later. Should you not send in a test score? I mean, if you have a really low test score, but like really great GPA and other extracurricular accomplishments, then it can be good for you not to send in a test score. But if you have a decent test score, like, you know, somewhere in the high 1400s or 1500s, you should definitely send it, even if you are concerned that it's like low or something. If you don't send it, it'll definitely look like, if you don't send a test score, the admissions officers will assume the worst. So an SAT test score will help you. SAT 2s are not important this year. I mean, they're just, it's kind of a bonus. It's a freebie. If you take it and you do well, that's great. Well is like the high 700s for most of the exams. It does vary a little bit, or an 800. But you don't have to. APs, I mean, APs only matter so much. And GPA and extracurriculars are going to be the big things during Corona. Yeah, if you are in one of these categories that's listed on the slide, if you have a really strong hook, like an awesome accomplishment, extracurricular accomplishment, that, you know, like you're an Olympic athlete, or you had a Broadway play produced on Broadway, something like that. Yeah, that'll help you get in. You may not have to worry so much about your SAT. If you're a legacy, if you're a recruited athlete, etc. If you go to a feeder school like Boston Latin School, may have a better chance. Sorry. But in general, you probably want to be sending your SAT scores as long as you can take the test and not do very poorly. Holistic review. Basically, Harvard and all top schools kind of look at your test scores and your GPA, and there's a threshold below which they just won't usually consider your application unless you've done something so amazing. You have to get through that threshold in order for them to consider the holistic elements of your application, consisting of your recommendation letters, your resume, extracurriculars included there, and your essays. So you do need to kind of, even if you have like really great recommendations and good interview and all that, if you don't have the GPA and or the test scores to pass that threshold, you may not really be considered. Just something to remember when you're thinking about applying. Uniqueness is important. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Harvard's treatment of Asian American students. If you are Asian American, you just need a stronger profile to get in. That's just how it is. There is a court case going on right now, alleged that Harvard is racist in its admissions process, specifically against Asian American applicants. I think that a judge in the lower court decided that Harvard's admissions practices were fine, but many are expecting this to go to the Supreme Court, so we'll wait and see if Harvard has to totally renegotiate their admissions process. But for now, do stay conscious of this. If you're Asian American and you're looking at like standard SAT scores to get into Harvard, know that you need to be on the upper end, simply because that's how Harvard's race-conscious admissions operates. Who do I know who got in? The people I know who got in had stellar GPAs. They had near perfect SATs. They had great scores. Many of them had one or two really specific extracurricular activities that they were fantastic at. Some were more well-rounded. I think if you're more well-rounded, you sort of just need a better profile all around. Like if you're applying as like a well-rounded applicant, you're just going to need really high scores and really cool accomplishments in a variety of fields. Versus if you like have one specific accomplishment, one area where you're like totally amazing. That's usually like one of the best ways to build a profile. Yeah, again, Harvard, it's not just the smartest students with the highest scores. That's sort of for MIT and Caltech. We want leaders. So in your essays, demonstrate or showcase your leadership. Obviously, you also want to, write really beautifully and humanize yourself and be vulnerable, connect with your admissions officer. But Harvard's looking for compassionate, creative people who are going to be leaders in the future, who are going to change the world.